So we said on yesterday's show that special teams was going to be important in the game against the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, we were right.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Wednesday episode giving that shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers. You all are so faithful to slog through this season day in and day out with us, and we love that. Also want to welcome any first-time listeners to the show. We appreciate having you here, and welcome to the wonderful world of Nashville Predators hockey. It's a bit of a shit show. I am Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio. And my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
I got so mad during this game at one point, Emma. I was like, she is no longer my partner in crime. She is my source for bail money. But I calmed down and we went back to the regular partner in crime.
It's probably a good thing because I don't have bail money, so you might be on your own. I would gladly help come break you out of jail, but I may not have the funds for that.
I don't know. By the end of the season, you and I may Thelma and Louise it. I'm just saying, you all. We just may. Yeah. On today's show, we're going to talk about one of those games that's going to drive us off that cliff. Nashville, of course, was wrapping up their road trip, hoping to get home with a winning record on the road. But again, the team not capitalizing on opportunities they were given. And the Jets, the Jets did. We're going to recap the game, including our one word to describe a 5-2 loss in Winnipeg. And friends, we're going to talk about the thing that we talked about yesterday, that we talked about a couple days before that we've been talking about all season, that we've been right about the whole time. But we're going to make it fun and interesting. So don't fret. Stick around. It's going to be great. Emma, we're going to kick it off the way we kick off all of our game recaps. And of course, that's with the beauty that is our one word to describe the game. For those of you who may be new here, Emma and I don't always stick to one word, but our show, our rules. So Emma, Preds lose 5-2 to the Winnipeg Jets. If you had to summarize this game in one-ish, words-ish, that we're allowed to say on the airish, how would you do it?
Well, my one word is 4 words.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with one of those games with those in italics because you could tell pretty early on that this was going to be one of those games. On top of the fact that the Predators in the first period alone hit 2 posts, they ended up hitting 4 total in this game. In the first period as well, they gave up their first 2 goals. Well, the first goal they gave up was an own goal by Nick Blankenburg. But the first 2 goals for Winnipeg were 16 seconds apart. Luke Evangelista left in that first period with an apparent injury. He would go on to briefly come back, but then he was ruled out for the rest of the game. And yeah, it was one of those where you kind of knew early, and then Winnipeg scored again at the end of the period.
So
they're up 3-0 after. And so it's one of those where you're just like, all right, 2 goals, 16 seconds apart, 2 posts / crossbars, an injury, you already know, this is just one of those games. And it's unfortunate because of where the Predators are in their season and how the season has gone for them so far, is that no one likes to have those games and no one wants to have those games, but some teams can, I would say, afford to have them more than others. The Nashville Predators really can't. And that's not to take anything away from the Winnipeg Jets because best team in the league. And, the top offensive team in the league. Hellebuyck the Predators got Hellebuycked, okay?
They
And
absolutely did.
so I just think that, it's a combination of things here. It wasn't like, the Predators took it to them early in the first period, and they were cycling the puck through the offensive zone. But again, those two crossbars, that own goal, and then it was just like they just that's how I
There
would
it
describe it.
was.
There it was.
Yeah. I actually have 2 one words, and neither one of them are one word because that's just role. One is a movie and one is a television show. My first one is Gone in 16 Seconds instead of Gone in 60 Seconds because, friends, the Jets can steal a game in next to no time, and we saw it in 16 seconds, back-to-back goals. Sort of back-to-back goals, own goal and then an immediate 16 seconds later goal. The other one is a television show, and I bet you don't know this television show, Emma. 8 is Enough. It's from the late 70s, except my one word is 8 is not enough because the freaking Nashville Predators went 1 for 8 on the power play, ladies and gentlemen, on the not so powerful power play. Of course, we always reach out and ask our insiders for their input post game and for their one word. Cora's one word, attrition. And in case you didn't know, I looked it up. I mean, I knew the word, but let's flesh this out, Corey. The action or process of gradually reducing the strength or effectiveness of someone or something through sustained attack or pressure. Yeah, it was one of those games. It was an attrition game. Gayton's one word was poop emoji. And we speak fluent emoji here. Gayton said it was promising to see the Preds, after going down 4-1, fight for another score and keep fighting after that. That's something we're going to circle back and talk about. Lee's one word, cigarette, because I needed one after that. Posts hit, injuries, 2-man advantage kill. It was brutal. Also, Lee pointed out a VIP reservation for Stanley in the invisible backpack. Yeah. Look, Logan Stanley had one long leg in the invisible backpack after he fought Alexander Carrier. Didn't he give Carrier a concussion?
No, broke his collarbone.
Broke his collarbone. Yeah. I don't take lightly to that when you mess with the Viscount. So you had one of your long legs already in the backpack, and then just a dumb move to cross-check Jonathan Marchessault in the kisser. So just pile in, dude.
I gotta I think it's hilarious. I mean, not hilarious. I mean, but it kind of is. The way, the aggression with which he just high sticked the crap out of Marchessault's face and immediately just reacted like nothing happened.
I know.
Like,
I love he did the I do nothing.
His face hit my fist. I don't know. Like, come on.
I mean, that was
great. That was good. But yeah, it was too many things went wrong, went sideways for the Predators in this one. There were some good things. Good things being Filip Forsberg. Finally, I guess he listened to yesterday's episode because he finally scored and emphatically put an end to that goal drought, by the way, because that was a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
Roman Josi also had not scored in double-digit games. He got one. And like you were saying before, good to see a little bit of fight in them. I mean, the Jets were out for blood, literally, in that third period because there were 2 4-minute double minors. One of them was kind of offset because Vinny Hinostroza had a tripping penalty. But either way, they had that defining moment in the third period because the Jets got themselves into some serious penalty trouble. And they had that defining moment, Nashville did, where they got 1 minute and 26 seconds of a 5-on-3. And guess what they did with it?
Wah, wah, wah.
They did nothing with it. And that is when now again, there was some fight, there was some effort, again, they did get Hellebuycked a couple times, but it was just a perfect storm of bad for the Predators.
And we talk about Winnipeg is the best team in the league. And look, you and I are very aware, and our listeners are very aware. Nashville, So not the best team in the league in the point standings, way down. You got to look way down at the bottom. But I always say this. I think the difference between a bottom of the league team and a top team in the league isn't as much talent as what people think it is. It is the player's ability to capitalize on an opponent's mistakes. It's an ability to capitalize on opportunities. And Winnipeg is one of those teams, and we've seen it consistently in the games that we've played against them. We've seen it consistently from the Winnipeg Jets. They are very good at capitalizing on opportunities. And you talk about that 5-on-3. Whoa, Nashville, not so much capitalizing on that. Coming up, we did mention there were some injuries as a part of this game. We're just going to talk about we got to talk about the power play and special teams. Today's episode's brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are just better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, you're going to get started with that $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Emma. Yeah, in case anybody missed it, the Nashville Predators went 1 for 8. And you did mention it, and I do think you have to mention it. Like, there was an element of Hellebuyckery going on in this game. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck was Hellebucking, just left, right, sideways, up, down, and he's a phenomenal goaltender anyway. Like, you know, I know it's easier to do our job when the Predators win, but you can't help but kind of watch Connor Hellebuyck in net and go, damn. Like, you have to appreciate how good he is in net. But can I just say, and again, it's always easier to say these things than to execute these things. And so I say this humbly, but full-throated. For the love of God, screen him. Get in front of Connor Hellebuyck. Where I just was like, I would pay so much money to see like a throwback Victor Arvidsson jump screen from anybody in front of Connor Hellebuyck in the game last night. Like, if he can see it, he can save it.
Yeah. That's the key with him, because he's so, not only does he have, you know, size. I'm not going to be the person that talks about the disparity in size between UC Saros and other goaltenders, but I'm not talking about Saros, talking about Hellebuyck. He's a big dude. Yep. And he sees the game really well. He has really good reflexes. I will say, and now I can't remember, it was in the third period. I can't remember who it was who shot it, but there was one moment in that third period where the Predators actually did screen him. Like, they had a pretty good screen on him. I think it was Brady Shea who was in front of the net, the screen. And I can't remember who shot it now, but it was at that moment where I'm like, how in the hell did Hellebuyck see around that screen? How did he do that? And it's like, because Shea's not a small guy either. So I think it's like he was just on his game, which, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. It's also not an excuse. I mean, Saros was on his game too. And, you know, so I just think that he was, like you said, certain element, high degree of Hellebuyckery in that game. But you couple that with the fact that the Predators were not opportunistic, and that is not a recipe for success.
Yes. And of course, on the power play opportunities, of which, let's reiterate, there were plenty. A lot of the time, the Nashville Predators did not have Steven Stamkos. I also felt like, just as an aside, and then we'll circle back to Stamkos, I felt like the Preds did not move as much as I thought they should move. Even on that 5-on-3, I'm like, you've got to move that puck. Like, you got to move the puck fast, and you should just move, like, skate Skate.
Yeah.
Don't just stand there and pass it back and forth in the same place. Like, I
They
would like chaos.
It was 5-on-3, and they looked intimidated by Winnipeg's 3 guys who were out there. Like, they stayed very perimeter. The shots they did get were from longer range, a couple of Roman Josi point shots on there, and Hellebuyck's going to stop all of them. So it's hard when like you said, you're already missing arguably your best power play weapon in Steven Stamkos, who left midway through the second period. You've got Nyquist there, but then you've got the other guys are tired. Guys are tired now too, because Evangelista was missing for most of the game. Now you have Stamkos, who's out for part of the game. I know that with Stamkos, they had Fedor Svechkov centering that top line. With Stamkos being out, that was at 5-on-5. But then you get to the power play, and these guys are gassed because when you have 8 power play chances, spend a lot of time
tired.
You spend a lot of time on the ice. So there's that. But I think they were down to 10 forwards for a lot of the game, and so just again, recipe for disaster. Unfortunately, like everything that could go wrong did. It's just wasn't good.
Yeah, and let's talk real quick about those injuries. In the first period, Luke Evangelista was hit by Neil Pionk. One skate in the invisible backpack of hockey grudges. Although, look, it wasn't a bad hit.
No,
let's be honest. It was just a regular hockey hit. There was nothing.
It wasn't the.
About
it wasn't
at all.
the.
It was the kind of the angle at which Luke Evangelista crumpled.
Yeah, he went into the boards, kind of his legs got tangled up a little bit. He was able to skate off on his own, skate to the bench on his own. Then he tried to come back out, wasn't really putting any weight on that right leg, I think. And then the way the rink is in Winnipeg, there are a couple rinks like this. Carolina's like this too, where the bench is on the opposite side of the ice from the tunnel to the locker room. So you can't go back to the locker room like down from the bench. You have to go across the ice. So we saw Tommy Novak helping Evangelista, get all the way across the ice. He's not putting any weight on that leg. And then went back down the tunnel. We did see him come back briefly in towards the end of the second period, which I think was surprising. I
was shocked.
We were like, oh, okay. But that was in the final 5 minutes of the second period. And then the team announced at the start of the third that he had been ruled out for the rest of the game with a lower body injury.
Yes.
So that was
Stamkos.
Yeah, we did not get that kind of an update on Steven Stamkos. Stamkos left. Now, with Evangelista, you mentioned that hit from Pionk, and that was pretty clearly that was what injured him. Stamkos, it was a little less, obvious what happened. They did go back and show his final shift, which happened, it was with about 12 minutes remaining in the second period. It looked like it was a fluke thing. Like he kind of lost an edge and stumbled a little bit on his skates. He went to the bench fine. Like he skated off fine on his own. But again, that was with 12 minutes left in the second period. And we heard radio silence on him. They were giving us all kind of updates on Evangelista, but Stamkos, nothing. So still don't have an update there as of time of recording. But
so this is pure speculation on our part at time of recording. We have not, as of this moment, heard an update on Steven Stamkos. Again, Evangelista out, lower body injury. Of course, no update at time of recording on time frame for that. My guess is maybe we will hear something in the morning, mid-afternoon on status on Evangelista. But let's just spitball for a minute.
I would say we probably won't hear anything.
They're traveling
because it's a day off. They're not practicing. They're getting back from traveling. So I would say if it's going to be an extended absence for either one, we might hear something on Thursday. if they're well enough to practice Thursday, we probably won't get anything definitive on their status until like literally right before warm-ups for the game on Saturday against
night.
Washington. So
yeah. Just spitball here with me, Emma. If, and this is if, everybody hear me, I'm just saying if Stamkos and Evangelista cannot go on Saturday, what would you do?
Well,
what about that?
One good thing is that you will have Zach LaRue back. He will be eligible to come back in. He has completed his 3-game suspension. So you'll have him back in the lineup, which is definitely a positive. As far as if both of those guys are unable to go, immediately I kind of thought, because the Predators this morning reassigned Kevin Gravel and Ozzy Weisblatt back to Milwaukee, and immediately when Evangelista went down, I was like, oh, has Weisblatt's plane left yet? Like maybe get back here. Yeah. So I would imagine we'd probably see Weisblatt back again, but again, I don't know. I would hope that at least one of those guys is good to go by Saturday, and then you also have, like I said, you still have LaRue who can come back. So I mean, hopefully
it's very helpful that they have this longer stretch in between games off. I think that gives a little bit extra time to make some decisions and to see kind of where they are at injury wise. Coming up, we're going to wrap up this game recap. We're going to talk about a couple things that we thought looked promising, because look, we are optimists. I mean, we're also realists. We know exactly where this team is, but we're going to talk about a couple things that we liked. We're also going to talk about a comment that Andrew Brunette made yesterday about this team and forming an identity. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, we love doing live events, whether it is sports, music, theater, or comedy. And one of the best ways to get tickets for your favorite live event is going to be with Game Time. Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with this new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff, and it's going to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of ticket options. Recently, I was scrolling through Game Time looking for tickets to an upcoming Predators game for my son's birthday, and I was, of course, checking it all out on the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found these amazing deals. I could see the view from the seat before I even bought the tickets. The super deals are particularly impressive. They offer great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front, so there were no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, Emma. Yeah, it was another loss. It was one of those games. Yeah, the power play absolutely stunk. But there were a couple things that I thought were worth mentioning that were good. This was the return of Tommy Novak. And I will say this, I think Tommy Novak had some really good shifts. Still want to see him keep the puck on his tape when he encounters an opponent. But I really thought, man, he had some good looks, especially in that third period when they were down to 10 forwards. I really felt like he sort of stepped up and elevated his game there. So I do want to give a shout out to Tommy Novak, because people are very hard on Tommy Novak, and it's not been a great season for him.
Yeah, no one's arguing that. But yeah, I agree. He had that one, when I say that he got Hellebuyck specifically, he had that one beauty of a shot in the third period, just got robbed blind. And you know, so he was doing some good things out there. He was noticeable out there, which was good to see. Good to see him back. Again, the fact that Adam Wilsby did not draw back into the lineup, but did practice with the team on Tuesday morning. And the fact that Kevin Gravel was sent back to Milwaukee would indicate that we could be close to seeing Willsby back in the lineup as well, which would be really good because Justin Barron took a bad penalty in the third period, led to a goal for Winnipeg directly.
It took them like 0.8 seconds to score on the power play.
Yeah. Like it was,
that's how you do it.
It's like, yeah, guys, see, you couldn't do that in 8 tries. Well, they did it once.
They did it once.
Thanks to Filip Forsberg.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but no, I agree. Tommy Novak was good. As I mentioned before, Josi and Forsberg both snapped double-digit goal scoring droughts, which was really good. Forsberg is a guy who, if you followed the Predators long enough, you know that Forsberg is a guy who he tends to score in waves. Like, it's like, hopefully this opened the floodgates for him. It's a little bit early. Normally February is his time, but we're going to be missing. We're going to be missing. We're going to have a lengthy break during February with the Four Nations face-off where he will be playing. But still, I mean, maybe he's just getting an early start to February. I don't think anyone is going to be upset about that. He also hates that term, by the way.
He does. He's not a fan.
Really he does not like it. But yeah, I think that it was good. It was good to see him get on the board. Good to see Josi get on the board. Saros looked good once again. He did not get the goal support that he needed. Yeah, I think there was some good. There was some good to be taken. Good. And I mentioned this earlier, but Fedor Svechkov, I would say the fact that Andrew Brunette even trusted him in that situation.
Huge.
Steven Stamkos goes down with a mystery, we assume, injury from losing that edge in the second period. And Svechkov is the guy who has 12 games of NHL experience. Yeah. He's the guy. And Andrew Brunette, as we've talked about before, tends to he likes his experience. He likes his veteran experience, and Svechkov does not have that. But, it showed, I think it was a sign of good faith. They put him out there in those high leverage, high pressure situations. So that was good. Yeah.
I liked Spencer Stastny too. And look, generally we're always this is Locked On Spencer Stastny sometimes. But really of course he is so responsible defensively and his skating is insane. But I saw some plays where he just had quality offensive playmaking going on, and it didn't pan out into anything, but he just seems to have a natural ability to read hey, this is a good time for me to drop in and try to create something, and this is a good time for me not to. And you love to see that, just love to see Spencer Stastny back here anyway, but really love to see and watch sort of his progression with the Predators anyway too. So shout out to Spencer Stastny. As Lee, one of our insiders, said, proud of the fight we put up in the third, and Forsberg had a fire in his eyes. Both of those things are good because so many games, Emma, we have seen this team go down 3-0 and they fold like laundry fresh out of the dryer. Well, nobody actually folds their laundry fresh out of. Do you fold your laundry fresh out of the dryer? Okay, good.
I got a dryer full of laundry that's been in there for approximately 3 days.
That's why God made the fluff cycle.
Yeah, don't tell my mother. She would be very disappointed. But yes, no, especially when you live alone, it's like what's the rush? No one else is using it. I'll get it when I get it.
Another dresser.
Yeah. It's like another closet, like a little closet.
100%. Andrew Brunette had a really interesting statement that came out yesterday before the Jets game, and he was talking about this team developing an identity. And I'm not going to read this word for word, but let me give you the gist of what he said. Talked about that this team is developing a little culture and chemistry on this road trip. He talked about things like Michael McCarron sticking up for Filip Forsberg and fighting Dakota Joshua. Talked about Jonathan Marchessault, who, quite frankly, has a very scrappy vibe, but has only fought a few times, stepping up and fighting. Talked about Steven Stamkos, who is going to be a Hall of Famer, known for goal scoring, finding Ryan O'Reilly to give the hat trick to. And Bruno said, those may seem like small things, but when you are a part of a group and you're trying to build chemistry, they are actually big things. Emma, do you feel like we are closer to this team having an identity? Because that's something that they really haven't had to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're seeing is that these guys are starting to play more for each other. And I think that sometimes gets blown out of proportion. Like people were taking that and running with it because you saw early in the year, if someone said these guys aren't playing for each other, people would take that and spin it out of proportion and be like, oh, they hate each other. There's friction in the locker room. There's too many egos, like all these things that just aren't true. What it is, though, and what we've tried to explain is that, if they're not playing for each other, that doesn't mean that they're out there like, hating each other. It's just they're each struggling with their own stuff. And this doesn't excuse it, but it explains what that means when you say they weren't playing for each other, because everyone was so in their own heads about their own individual performances not being there, not being where they needed to be, that they couldn't like be good teammates to each other. And now you're seeing a little bit more of getting out of their own heads, trusting each other, trusting themselves, but then trusting each other, trusting that they can lean on each other a little bit and actually, do these things. And then you're seeing, like you said, the fights and the selflessness of Stamkos for that to get O'Reilly the hat trick, like all of those things. I think are, they sound small, they sound simple, but it's like you gotta start somewhere. And I think we're starting to see things like that where guys are not so focused on their own. And that's not, doesn't mean they all had giant egos and that they were, like all obsessed with themselves. It was more just like, hey, if you're not firing on all cylinders, then it's hard to get out of your own head, get out of your bubble, and actually like focus on contributing to the team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think you're getting closer to it. But to get to that, you've got to have individual success is maybe not the right word, but you have to have a level of feeling good about your individual performance and confidence, and then kind of build from that. And Barry Trotz always says, we can't just hand you confidence, and I think, no, you can't, but you could sure take it away with some of your decisions. But that's probably a podcast for another time. But when you see players start to get just sort of that self-confidence, that comfort level, then that's when you can start kind of connecting as a team. And I think we are seeing some of that. Do they have a very clear identity where game in and game out exactly what they're going to look like? Not yet, but we're getting closer. We can't seem to win 3 games. They've only won 3 games in a row once, and that was back October 22nd to like the 26th. Remember when we used to have hope, Emma? You remember those good old days where we were like,
No,
and now we're rolling?
Yeah, can't recall. Sorry.
Can't recall.
Yeah. No, but I think that you're right. It's still not quite there, but it's better than it was. I mean, it would be hard to be much worse. But again, how many times earlier back in like November were we coming on the show saying like, it looks like these guys have never met before. And now it doesn't look like that. They look a lot more cohesive, a lot more connected. They don't look like a just disaster in the way that they did, early in the season. But now they're losing games still, but you can see it. Like you can see the potential, you can see the upside, but it's just like not quite clicking. but it gives you a little bit of hope that it's like, okay, it's there. We just haven't unlocked it yet. I mean, at this point, for this season, it's probably too late, but I mean, it does give you hope for, maybe next season and beyond, that this isn't, it's not something that you can't come back from.
Yeah. And I think this is just going to be a season, and it's going to be hard. I don't know that this season is suddenly going to turn around and get really easy. But, you have used this analogy, and I think you nailed it. Like, you don't dig yourself in a hole and spring out of it. This is the season where they are getting mud under their fingernails and struggling for the foothold to climb their way out. But this is what I will say. Sometimes you learn the best in the most painful, challenging, difficult circumstance. And I think that's what this season is going to be. What they do with that, we're going to have to wait and see until next season. But I do think this is just going to be a season of clawing your way and learning some things. And, we can hope it pays off next season. But that's a podcast, friends, for a whole nother day. We are going to wrap up this podcast for this Wednesday. I do want to thank you all for joining us. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Before we sign off on this and close the door on this road trip, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and where they can find your work online?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio and on 102.5 at Penalty Box Radio Live. It's going to be on tonight, I think at 8 o'clock. On 102.5, I think 8 o'clock. Anyway, just listen to the radio tonight at 8 o'clock. That is going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to be back tomorrow with an all new episode. There's always lots to talk about with this team. We'll see you then.